I accidentally found out my fiancé has been creating erotic fan art fiction for years. Me and my fiancé have been together for 6 years now. I love her dearly. My fiancé has always been huge into drawing in her free time. Frankly, she is really good at what she does. She has shown me a bunch of stuff in the past, and if I recall, she always posted it to her DeviantArt. Most it is of video game characters. Some of her artwork is suggestive. Yesterday I was talking to a coworker about video games, and I remembered my fiancé did some art for one of the games we were talking about. So I decided, try to go and find it. Being lazy, I decided to punch in her username into Google, hoping to find her DeviantArt. Except I had a lot more stuff come up. Google showed a bunch of pictures. I guess you could call them the NSFW version of art she has done. I ended up clicking on them and being sent to my fiance's Hentai Foundry profile. I just kind of shrugged and didn't care. However, in the Google search results, I also noticed a link to a archive of our own story with her username. This got me kind of curious, so I decided to take a peek, expecting it to be just old fan fiction stuff she wrote ages ago. There was a lot of stuff, including recent stuff in her profile. Most of it was, I guess, what you would call erotic fan fiction. At this point I found it funny, and when she got home on Friday night I offhandedly mentioned what happened and how I found it humorous. She got very upset at me and started acting like I caught her cheating or something. I told her several times I'm not kink shaming, etc. She told me I violated her privacy and broke our trust. She said that stuff had nothing to do with me and I had no business snooping. I tried my best to calm her down, but she was visibly upset last night. All of today she has been very upset, to the point where she said she needed to spend some time at her sister's. I have apologized and told her it was an accident, and I have told her several times that I'm not being judgmental about what she draws. However, she is still very upset. At this point I'm at a loss for what to do. Reddit comments. I suppose I can weigh in on this, since I have been a hobbyist artist in similar communities. My work is rather more vanilla than what you described from your fiancé, but I drew a lot of slash art which can be seen as similarly weird by people completely divorced from fandom culture. The thing about these communities, especially NSFW communities, is that they are generally very insular and full of like-minded people. I'm talking in broad strokes, but the majority of online artists do not treat their social media in the same way, especially a website like DeviantArt, which is very specifically for artists and fans. Most of the people your fiancé interacts with on these sites and shares her interests with are likely online friends who she met through the content she and they create, despite being technically public. Interacting with others under a handle and having that stable foundation of shared interests with your audience is a very comfortable feeling. She will not be accustomed to judgment, as 90% of the people who discover her content organically will be due to a genuine interest that lead them there. I liked the anonymity and thrived from these accounts being largely separate from viral social media like Facebook, etc. But I gave out my usernames to friends I trusted, held common interests with, and who knew I liked to draw, much like your fiancé clearly did with you. But it was wildly uncomfortable when other people started to find it through them, and I no longer had control over who, in my life, it was shared with. It doesn't mean that feeling was justified. It was public, and in all likelihood my friends just wanted to support me, or were curious. And I didn't even have anything particularly suggestive in my media. But fan content in any form is widely looked down upon, or seen as juvenile in the eyes of the general public, so I couldn't help but have a defensive reaction towards anyone who I saw as outside of these communities. Your fiancé clearly had work she was happy to share with you, which is great, but also evidently wanted to maintain that control over what you saw. It's ultimately her fault for not communicating that, especially if there were so few privacy measures in place on her accounts and all the explicit content could be found through her primary username. But if she privated that content, she would be creating a barrier towards the like-minded people and fans she wants to reach with her work. She may also be upset you were showing her stuff to other people, and that they may, in turn, learn her handle. But I think the bigger issue is that you described this discovery to her as something amusing. Both art and fiction are incredibly personal, labor-intensive time investments, no less so for the content being erotic. She probably felt judged or ridiculed by the way you relayed this story, like her hobby was reduced to something silly in your eyes, and I'm afraid backpedaling with reassurances won't do much. At that point she'll see your initial reaction as your honest feelings, even if you were only intending to tease her good-naturedly. It's different to if you caught her looking at a specific type of vulgarity. She made all of that, probably poured hours into them. Her reaction was likely a knee-jerk one from feeling violated because you saw deeply personal work she wasn't ready to share with you of a subject matter that many people would find perverted, deviant, weird. If you care about comforting your fiancée at all, I would ignore all the righteous comments telling you she's being ridiculous because it was a public account, etc. Even though it's true and this wasn't your fault, that's not the hill you want to die on with someone you love. Don't apologize for snooping because you didn't, but for seeing something that she obviously wasn't ready to share with you. I would emphasize you are proud of her talent and wanted to show it off, which is why you were googling her in the first place, but be ready for her to say she'd rather you didn't, especially anyone she also interacts with personally. Definitely discuss what boundaries you are both comfortable with WRT her online presence going forward, and apologize for approaching her as though this hobby was something silly and humorous. I think giving her some space to let the initial embarrassment simmer down is a good idea too. Good luck, Op. I hope I could clear up any confusion as to how your fiancé may be feeling. I really don't think you are guilty of anything here, except maybe being a little tactless lol, but unfortunately there are a ton of people who wouldn't be as cool and non-judgmental as you are. Keep up that attitude, and I'm confident her defensiveness will fade away with time. I write erotica. I had an ex-partner I wasn't super open with. Guess why the relationship died? And if she'd discovered my erotica posting, I'd have been mortified. I might have reacted angrily, but it would have been a cover for my own embarrassment. My partner now gets to read my erotica first. Overreactions like this are common when someone gets caught in something they are not proud to share with a loved one. Seems really mean that you thought it was humorous and laughed at her. It's important to her. It's her art. What the F? She should be able to trust you most of all, but you snooped on her just to laugh at her. My guess is that she's embarrassed. It's a peek inside her fantasy world, and I'm guessing she didn't feel comfortable sharing that. Those two worlds were segregated, and maybe she was scared of what you would think. Judgment. That you were amused. I get it. Probably didn't help. I think is a misunderstanding. If you said it was funny the way you found it, maybe your fiancé though you were making fun of her art creations. I can understand her, because I create erotic art sometimes, but it's something so personal that I share with my IRL friends when I'm ready to. I know not everyone could take it like an important matter, but it's special for me, so this kind of personal creations could be shared when you're ready to open to someone. If you found it, and you're okay with this, only needs patience. Keep telling her is okay, and you support her art. It could take time, but looks that you love her so much. Hope it solves soon. Update. She came back after I sent a large apology message, apologizing for laughing at her fanfiction, and it was not done out of malice, and more out of awkwardness. We had a long talk about it. I explained I wasn't that comfortable with her keeping such a large amount of her life secret / hidden from me. She also admitted that oftentimes, when she was saying she was working late in our home office, what she actually meant was she was writing and drawing stuff and just wanted to be left alone. I told her I had no problem with her hobbies, which made her happy. She also told me that she is so embarrassed because a bunch of it is self-inserts of her, and some of it would make me unhappy reading it. I asked her to show me, and she eventually agreed. I read some of it, and it didn't bother me at all. To me fantasizing about fictional characters isn't a huge deal as it is simply a fantasy and not real. I asked if some of the things she writes are things that turns her on, and I told her I'm willing to try anything at least once. Yesterday night she actually sat down next to me and started writing while I was next to her on the couch, and she didn't seem embarrassed at all anymore. So I guess this is good. Comment and subscribe.